Alright, so we have CyberShredder v Babosos. They're starting a little bit early. CyberShredder is the former World Championship, former World runner-up from last year. CyberShredder playing King G3 as he usually does. And we have this line, knight takes f2 with knight takes h1 and knight e4. Rook to g7, very tricky line. Many people go king b3 and king c4 going down that draw line. Another one is king b3, and there's other variations where he doesn't play king to e6, but this gets really tricky really fast. So I believe queen e8 is a possible draw, but it's very tough because you lose this diagonal and the ability to put a piece on h8, a major piece. So king to c4 is the move here. I oftentimes like to play king a3 better. So there's queen a2, and there's just a direct rook b8 or rook b7. But king e6 was played. Alright, just queen a8, king to f7, king c4, probably just a direct rook g8, and this just looks losing for for black. Maybe we're gonna see bishop h6, knight f6, after rook g8 and rook takes on a8. It almost seems like bishop h6 is a must though. And maybe there's going to be some efforts with rook to b8 at some point. So bishop h6, maybe even queen takes a8, rook to b8, and rook to g8, and then king to b5, rook to e8, or even d8 or c8 works, and then knight to f6. Not sure if that's completely losing, but this is how it's going to have to be played out. Alright, rook 1 to g6. Forgot that that's a move there. Rook 1 to b8, perfectly fine. Now you have an issue here. You have to play knight f6, and after it takes bishop h7, and then the rook takes, and it looks like Babosos might be in trouble here. But after bishop h7 then takes, maybe you can get your rook involved somehow. Something like rook to b5 align with here. Doesn't seem like it. This taking on h7 is just a huge threat. Yeah, king to c5, no calculation, just losing. Unfortunately, I think that line was lost, but Babosos did a really good job to try to hang on there. But CyberShredder will take game one. Alright, so we have a king h3 line. Good to see Babosos playing this line. Going down the standard draw line, but then deviates to bishop d4. Very strong line that's been being played recently by a lot of top players. King b4, king d4, knight c4. All good stuff. Rook e2 is the move that a lot of people don't know about when you're playing this with white. Very strong move. attacks the bishop and the dual purpose move. Rook to e6. Black's major pieces all cramped up. White's rook isn't going to get involved, but once this knight activates, it's going to be a tough for black. The queen has good development, obviously too strong bishops for white. It's good for white, but black's king is obviously advanced further, so that's why this position is considered equal, but I believe the computer gives white a slight advantage here. Hey Seth. Queen a6 is played. And takes. No takes back, but rather queen trade. Are we going to see maybe rook to f6 then? Safe place for the rook. With king to f5 to follow for white. Maybe a bishop d3 move. No, because there's no check rule with those ones. A return to e6, and then the bishop comes to c6. Yeah, king f5, then the rook's going to come to e7, and probably rook to b7, and then king to e6. Maybe even rook to b8 first, then rook to b7. It's a little complicated here. Maybe the idea is bishop b7 with the rook coming here. The issue is that king e6 first. The issue is king e6. There's also bishop d3 at some point. Unpinning the knight. But yes, there isn't an immediate threat. You can just take this with the bishop because there's no check rule. And white should be fine here. They should actually be really fine. That is also an alternative move. I would have just taken the bishop so there's less chances here. And you don't lose your rook. So you have to advance to what, g7 now, don't you? Oh, you don't have to worry about the bishop now. Just king f7. The issue is here. And then this is just a draw at this point. Bishop e4. Okay. The rook's gonna drop and force a draw. Because you can't, so if the rook drops here, you can't take here. Because after advance, and then your rook goes forward to stop, then the rook comes back. And the issue is that there is rook here after the bishop takes. In that scenario, I guess that might lead to draw. Advance, but bishop just takes the bishop. Knight takes bishop. Bishop takes rook. Okay, simplifying the position. Do you just take here, or do you play knight to d6 as white? I honestly think that CyberShredder should have just played rook to b7 and gone for the draw, but both players still want to win early on. D6. So stopping this, bishop h2 is an interesting move. But now you can play knight b5 and have no worries about this. So knight b5, for example. Maybe they're going to try something with rook to c8, with the bishop coming here. But then you can play something like king to f7. with ideas of bishop g7, bishop f8. Knight e8 played immediately and takes, but then you're just going to have a draw here because you can't stop both. So we're seeing a draw in game 2 here. Not the full sweep for Cyber. Alright, another king g3, but this time king b3 is played. And going down the main line, are we going to see the same draw line as we saw in Ben Vinato? Right, advances and queen to b7. Bishop g2, so we are seeing the same line thus far. Rook takes, and after takes, takes. Rook takes e2 is a deviation from what we saw in Ben Vinato, so this should be interesting. I personally don't know this line. If bishop a3 is anything, this doesn't look completely correct. Because after here, maybe takes, you have here, and then you have something like rook g1. If that's a drawing, then something like this. Bishop g5 seems like a good alternative, because there is no queen here. But they double up here, and is rook to e8 a must now? King a5 does that, but then you'll lose the rook with initiative hitting your queen, so I think you just go rook e8 here. Rook takes. Ah, you have bishop h6. Because then this rook covers e8, bishop covers f8, and then the other rook covers g8, so... Alright, queen is attacking the queen, and the bishop. Queen's protected though. Rook comes here. It takes with the king though. You go rook to g7. Because it takes with the queen obviously just takes. And then here, and then king to b6. But if takes with the king, what, you go rook to g7? Oh, this is looking very tough to hold on to. Do you play king to c6 stopping this? How are you gonna stop return to queen a7? That was the threat that you had to analyze against there. Maybe king to c5 would have worked. Takes, and then rook comes here. The queen would drop. But then you could play king to c6, and it seemed, or I guess the queen would have to drop here. And then maybe you play king to b6, and that looks like a well-been draw. But CyberShredder takes game 3. Right, we see king h3 here, bishop b4, knight g3, so another king h3 game. Alright, king to g4. Probably going into the same line with knight to c4, and I wonder who's going to deviate. I mean, if Babosos wants to come back in the series, he's gonna have to win a game. And now would be the time to do it. So I'll probably king b5 again, rook e6. And queen a6 again. Are you gonna take again, or are you going to go king f5? He takes again, and another queen trade line. We're gonna see rook e6 again, maybe rook f6. Nope, same line all the way this time. Bishop c6, king to f5, king a6, rook to e7. So is CyberShredder gonna change the line again? I mean, CyberShredder probably is just content with another draw. Rook to b8. So where's the deviation gonna come in? Knight to e4. Instead of bishop takes b1. Interesting. So now you do have to play king to f6, or do you just play rook to g7 here? Well, this isn't a move at all. Bishop b2 played though. It's a very crafty move. Now do you go here? The issue is, do you have this knight move? Oh no, you don't. It's pinned. Never mind. Now you can take this knight with the bishop. Knight to e3. Not sure what the idea here is. Maybe knight f5. Can you trade the rook? Okay, causes a counter threat, but after takes, after knight f5 takes, then don't you just have knight takes g7? Although there is takes, maybe not. Maybe knight f5 isn't playable here. I think black should have gone here instead. Or even here, just stop. King to f7. Well, the king to f7 wasn't really a threat because of that right now, so we'll see. The other good thing about this move is that the bishop and knight coordinate to stop a king's advance. In fact, the king is boxed in like this. So do you play rook to b3 here? Attacking this bishop, sacrificing the exchange, but then you go the bishop here. Knight f5 also attacks here. So the bishop coming back is an interesting move. This obviously will unpin the knight, but alternatively you can just take with the knight again, and then you can reset back to knight to d6. The issue is if you take with the knight, there is always knight to f5, and maybe you take. No, he takes with the knight here. Allowing the bishop to take if he wants. Wow. That might very well be the best move here. Because then the knight d6 to return. Takes knight f5 now. I'm sure you can just take the knight. And after bishop takes. Although, I guess bishop takes is a threat. It's more complicated the more you look at it. Because the issue is knight f5 also attacks the bishop. Do you maybe just go knight to d6 here? Allow one of your rooks to be captured? If they want to take the rook, if not, they take the bishop with their knight's pinned. Then you can come rook to f7 and rook to f8, and that looks winning. Alternatively, there is, after knight to d6, knight takes on f6. Either way. Knight e5 instead. You can take here, so takes back, and then it takes here. Yeah, take the bishop, and then return. After, oh, you have to, well, this should just be a draw. Yeah. Alright, interesting. Both games have led to the same results. So 3-1, and then another king g3 line. No, I think Babosos fought better in the king g3, king b3 line. So will he figure out king c4 here? Because the issue with queen a8 is it just doesn't give you a lot of fighting chances. I really don't think there's another move here. Maybe king a4 works out just the same. King c4 is really just to stop knight takes c1, so you have bishop h6 if you need it. So yeah, I wonder what Bob's trying to figure out. So he does manage to find king to c4. Great job. And now just rook to b8. After rook g8, you do just play bishop h6. Maybe you don't have to. Maybe you just alternatively. Oh no, bishop h6, so you can alternatively play knight to f6 if you wanted to. He still plays queen a8 anyway. And now you just have to play bishop h6. I don't get the point of that. Just play rook to b8. So yes, bishop h6. Probably gonna see rook 1 g6 again. And then knight f6. Because if rook b8 again, we're just gonna see this once more. So knight f6. And then he's gonna take, or take this way. Honestly, this was a bigger threat. Let's see, bishop h7 after, so yeah, rook b8. And we're in the same exact position that we were last time when he played this line. Alright, CyberShredder will take this game once more. Scores 4-1 now. And it's aborted. Did Babosos forfeit, or did he take a break? Maybe a break. I mean, I see CyberShredder analyzing. I expect a break, but we don't know quite yet. Alright, so this king g3 line, I don't think queen a8 works at all. And, yep, bishop e3 is apparently the move, and king a3. But here in king e6, obviously king c4 is the move, otherwise you're just losing. So this king c4 line, the idea is after king to f7, you do just have rook to b8. And apparently rook to 1 to g6 is strong, but I don't see why. But yeah, it's the draw line here. You just have to know it. I think knight takes c2 is the preferred line. Knight h3 is oftentimes played. But yeah. Yep. Yep. CyberShredder confirms it will be a break. So we'll be back in about 10 minutes time. So yeah, this is what you do have to play here. Just this line. Now let's look at the draw. This is the more interesting one. So the king h3. So yeah, he is. See, just king to f5 also works here. But rook takes a6 leads to a drawing line, or a more equal line. But yes, all the moves he's been playing here actually look fine, except for that rook takes a6. And rook b7 in the lower depth, saying that it's a dangerous move. But yeah, rook b7 to get the king to e6 immediately and stuff. Bishop takes b1 is the better move here, like I was saying. Oh, maybe not. Engine levels out. But really anything draws in. Yeah, then here I was saying just take the bishop. But wasn't, and knight b6 was played. Bishop e4. Ooh, wow. Babosos found an only move here if this does stay winning. Wow, that's amazing. Wow. And bishop e5, what a move to find. Holy cow. Because yeah, the knight then comes to c8. Knight takes c8, rook takes c8, and king to g7, or you can alternatively take the bishop. And wow, that would have been something to see. But unfortunately, it wasn't found in the draw. But wow, Babosos actually played that game really well. Um, then we have the other king g3 line, and honestly, this one looked fine for Babosos. See, it starts going up at lower depth, but it's all fine at lower, once you let the engine run a little bit. So, queen to d6, rook e6, only drawing move. Wow, it's great from Bubble. Queen takes d8 here, and then yes, king c5 was the only move. And then yes, once he takes back, rook to g7, queen to d7, and king b6, like I was saying. And then takes, and it's a draw. So, unfortunate that Bubble didn't see king c5 there and instead played king c6, but other than that, good stuff. So this time, instead of this bishop takes a b1 move, what Babosos did was he did end up playing knight g4, then rook g to g7, rook takes b7 immediately. Well, what's wrong with rook takes b7? Oh, knight d6. Wow. But he plays knight d6 first, and yeah, knight takes b7 was a good move there. He did just have king f7 immediately. What? Because after here, isn't this rook hanging? Oh goodness. And then, yeah. Wow. Unfortunate that he missed that. Oh, and taking the bishop was the mistake. Unfortunate. Yeah. Good stuff from CyberShredder to find that draw there, even though it was completely losing. And then this line again, he just has to play rook to b8. Queen a8 is just incredibly difficult to hang on to. Yeah. Nothing more to say about that one. I honestly think Babosos has a better chance if he plays king to b3. But it'll be interesting to see a comeback here. Scores 4-1. And we'll return in a couple minutes once the players start playing. Alright, as I was stating here, I did not manage to get commentary on this one because my mic did not pick up the commentary for this game when I was live. So anyway, this opening was blitzed out, and all I was pointing out here was that initially this bishop to d4 move was interesting and must have been prepped from Babosos as he has the white pieces here. And since the moves are blitzed out, that both players seem to play this line. At least that CyberShredder plays this line a lot, so it must be preparation from Babosos, and he found something here. Bishop h7 was an interesting move, and not very expected, but the maneuver here that he brings it to g8 was spectacular. Really, he just sets up a strong diagonal. Knight to d6 is a little bit out of place, but queen to c6 is a really interesting move. Did not expect it, did not see it coming. And then now the queen's just going to come to d7. Has to move away. All I wanted to say here is that the position is a little bit wild. It happened really fast. I'm just recollecting myself to be able to analyze the position. Um, Here I suspected that queen to e6 was going to be played, just to cut off both the d5 and e5 square, but yes, the queen after queen a4 pushes it away. But then Afterwards, I realized that the queen to e7 is probably a better move because you can slide between e7 and c7 if needed, and it will support the g5 square where the rook can come up. Here, obviously, black would want to play queen a5 then to stop that idea of rook to g5 and queen to c7. So it's a good move here, but I thought rook g5 was fine because after takes, the queen's going to come down, and even though the knights cut off the f5 square, they're not going to do anything to the g5 square, and it just reduces the thing once you get the rook on h2 involved. White would have been fine. So, like I said, rook to h2, rook h6. But rook g7 was an interesting move. Didn't expect it. The king's completely cut off, so I just expected rook to e5 here to hit the queen away. And I didn't know where the queen was going to go because allowing king c5 might not be bad because you can always pick up the rook. But knight to c4 was probably going to be played for first, and then the bishop was going to turn it off. But now that here, I saw that the queen trade was probably the easiest thing to do. And then knight to c4, and then the same idea is that black's rook is going to be there, white cannot advance. So it's the opposite situation, and then maybe rook h6 should put pressure. But queen to c5 play was played, and now that the queen trade was ignored, white obviously has options here. At first, I didn't really know what to do because I thought queen a7 was the possible better idea for black to come. But all I knew here was that the white bishop was very dominant on the white squares, as you notice that all the black pieces were on the dark squares. So that white bishop was really coming into effect here on g8 and was maybe the game-changing idea. I thought queen to d7 was in order, just to pin the knight and make it a little bit tougher because then the knight to c4 idea wasn't going to work. But didn't really know what to do here as white. It's a really tough situation. But rook g2 was played before I could even think of anything. And it does put a lot of pressure on, but there was this knight fork here. And maybe that's why queen to d7 should have been played. But it's fine here for white. White just has to figure out which piece to save and how to save it effectively. But rook to e7 was played, and right here, just rook takes e7, wins on the spot. It's just a free rook. Of course, you can take the queen with the knight, but then you're going to lose your rook. But then the queen takes the queen, and I think that was a blunder. Because now the rook's taken, and yes, you do have knight to g4. Any knight move there for black would have been fine, but knight c4, you obviously bishop trade, but at least the bishop's off the board. But here, I noticed that it's perfectly fine for white to advance because black can never take that rook. So black's just gonna take the rook and trade, and white's gonna hold here. Queen to d6 seems like the only idea. Drop back, but bishop e6. And then you're gonna have king to g6 after, but that does hang the rook, so I had to stop for a moment and think. The knight there on e8 is very strong. But here I just wanted to go back and point out that rook takes e7 just wins on the spot. Because it attacks the queen, and the queen has no square. So we somehow managed to end up in this position where it's winning for Babosos. So queen to b6 idea is that if you don't stop the king though, then the king is just going to run to either g6 or e6. So maybe you at least have to stop e6 square. Because if g6, you're at least losing the rook, and it could be a draw here because bishop f7, and then you're going to force the king to h7, and it looks like it's just in time for a draw. But king to e6 is really the threat here, so you probably have to play queen to b6. But queen to c6 was not expected. And I'm sorry, I keep saying queen to b6, I meant queen to d6. But here, just bishop e6, and you're going to want to advance. I noticed that you run into the same problem, though, after bishop e6, king g6, is that the king is going to is the only protector of the rook, so hanging that. But if you do play king to g6, allow it. Maybe the idea here is that the queen can come to d6 after. But if you just allow g6, that f7 is such a big threat because that rook here. But as I noticed, is that queen to d6 after bishop d6 allows king to g6, but then you're going to advance and with the king to f7, and then maybe the knight comes to f6 here. and that it will hold on the 8th rank as the knight and queen coordinate like that. But queen to c7 was unexpected, and then bishop to d7 just cuts off the queen, attacks the knight. The knight is actually going to be lost here because the knight has no squares. As you can see, that is protected by no check rule, that's protected by no check rule, that's defended, and the knight cannot come to c7 because the queen's there. So it's completely losing for black. It's actually over at this point. You can play something like king to c5 to slow down white's progression because the bishop is no longer on this diagonal here. So you can just block off the c6 square with c5. That's the idea. The stall really, maybe you want to go queen d6 first, and then after takes, then you can play that. But there's just resignation. Oh goodness. Oh hey, not so. And yes, that's unfortunate that I didn't get any of the commentary there. But it should be fine now. Alright, this line again, Babosos is coming here, and rook to b8 finally plays this line. Rook 1 to g6. I didn't look at this line specifically when I went over the lines, but should be completely fine. Maybe even bishop b2 being a move here. I doubt it. Bishop h6 looks like a stretch, but knight f6 doesn't look too bad. Alright, king to c5. Alright, rook to g8. Does an immediate queen to h8 work? No, probably not. So if queen to h8, rook takes h8, rook takes h8, rook to g8, rook to b8, and king to g7, looks like it wins on the spot. Yes, there's bishop to b3 here, but after the rook drops to h6, maybe even h5 takes, and I guess maybe a draw, but the draw is the best that you can get here because you do have to take on c2 otherwise here. But rook to b8, king to g7, maybe rook h5. There is also knight to d6 here. This is actually difficult because here, if you drop back, then this rook's hanging. So this is actually a win for Cyber. Because I forgot about that. That it's unprotected. Wow. And Cyber will take game 7, 5-2 now. And we're seeing the same line as we did after the break. And they're once again just blitzing it out. Bishop h3, bishop f5. Same exact line. Are we going to see bishop h7 again? No, bishop g6 this time. Interesting. I'm not sure what the difference is between h7 and the g6. This one does give the option of e8, so extending the diagonal. This queen to c6 idea is prevalent in Babosos' play in this line. Alright, queen knight to d6. And so this is a very similar position to what we saw last time, except instead of moving rook to e5 after, so yeah, basically the idea was queen to b5, the queen shifts over, and then rook to b5. They played just this knight to c4 immediately, which was, I wondered why it wasn't played last game. This game though, you don't have the bishop on this diagonal. Rook to c1. Babosos is in a must-win situation, so honestly, Babosos needed a draw in that last game, as Black, unfortunately, he wasn't able to get it, but he can still come back in this series. Rook to d5, that's a good move. And yeah, White's major pieces are just uncoordinated, and this bishop not being on this diagonal allows that. Bishop h7 was probably a better move, so that you at least have bishop to g8. But it's not over. I mean, you allow here, but maybe you can get away with it. And I'll bring the rook to h7, pin this knight, get the bishop to e5 or e4, and then take up d5 as a threat. Black has offered a draw, which means that would end the series if Babosos accepts. But considering Babosos hasn't taken it at this rate, I believe he thinks he can fight on. Bishop to f5. It's an understandable idea, except that takes is just a huge threat. Are you just going to sack your queen? It doesn't seem like it works. I feel like he missed that move. And now the knight's just going to return. And black is just winning. Or, yes, come here. Not sure if Babosos can pull this one back. But it was nice to see Babosos at least attempt something here. Alright, rook to d6. Knight takes f5, queen takes f5. Issues advance, rook h6. And then the knight just comes here with dual purpose. Queen h1 offers draw, but CyberShredder says no anymore. So Babosos was willing to end the series, but CyberShredder says I'm going to win this one now because I don't think it's a draw anymore. Queen to d5. This rook on c1 is completely useless, unfortunately. And yes, after takes, then one of the knights is just going to come back. I mean, sure, you have rook to c7. But then this queen's hanging, so queen f3. Yes, knight comes back. And I think it's over. Yeah, just queen to c5 if you must. Or that works as well. Queen's pinned, but yeah, the two knights versus a rook with this difference in ranks is just unfortunately winning. And CyberShredder will take game 8, winning the series 6-2. It was nice to see Babosos come back a little bit, but unfortunately, it wasn't enough. CyberShredder will go for it. Um, who is he playing in the next round? I believe CyberShredder is playing a chess player 453 person who is believed to be Calder. The one who beat I Make Many Mistakes, who is the current world champion. But yes, GG's here. So CyberShredder will go forward to play them. But Vosos will actually play I Make Many Mistakes in the next round.